Reaching for upside is cliche piece of fantasy advice because it's often implemented incorrectly. Your early round picks should lean conservative and your upside quotient should increase as you move through the draft. On this video, we're going to give you 3 classifications of players that you need to reach for in upside in order to make a difference and win your league. I'm Alan Seslowsky here with Peter Schoenke. Peter, how are you breaking down upside and how should people implement it in their drafts?
So really there's 3 classes of players that you should look at the very, very end of your draft. The first one is prospects, right? Prospects come up, great players in the minors, sometimes faster than you expect. Got to take some shots. And, a month or 2 in the season, if it doesn't look like it's going to happen, you can drop them and move on.
All right. What's the second classification of upside?
Second classification is bullpens. I mean, everyone's spent a lot on closers early in drafts this year, but there's so many situations. There's at least 6 teams that are just wide open, and you should look for some, throw some darts, look for some guys with some upsides. I've got some names for you there.
All right, we'll come back to those players in a moment. What's the third classification of upside?
The third classification is injured players, and this really depends a lot on your league rules. I'm in a league that's an NL only league, and it has unlimited injured reserve spots. So you can draft an injured guy, put him on injured reserve, pick up a reserve player in free agency, and have that guy sit, on your bench, no problem the rest of the year. There's a lot of formats like that. In that case, in the end of your draft, you definitely want to take one of these players and just park them there. He might have value in the middle of the year, might even have value if it's a keeper league for next season. So you want to have a list of these guys ready. And even in a mixed league where you don't have an IR spot, some of these guys are worth, speculating on at the end of your draft, because if it turns out that they're going to be healthier than, earlier than expected, it could pan out.
All right, so now let's get into some specifics, give people some players they can actually speculate on. Let's go back to your first classification, the prospects. Give me a couple prospects that you're going to be trying to pick up and hit on their upside.
Well, the first one is Julio Rodriguez with Seattle. So he's RotoWire's #1 prospect. And I think before spring training started, it was kind of like, maybe he's got a shot at the majors. Maybe he's got a shot to get called up early in the season. I mean, he's very young. But suddenly he's having a great spring training. He's hitting 304 with 1 home run. The last 2 weeks, so obviously since spring training started, his ADP is still 221 in the NFBC, the RotoWire Online Championship since March 24th. So, he's still freely available. Take him at the end. I mean, if they shock the world and they actually have him on the opening day roster or bring him up early in the season, you've got a guy that could be a real impact player from day one at a cost that's almost nothing.
Your second classification was looking for upside in the bullpen. Give me a couple names that I should target in my drafts.
Yeah, so there's a lot of bullpens that are just wide open. It's one of the reasons not to take closers early, because there's going to be just a lot of stuff available on the waiver wire. So with the Cubs, I like David Robertson, veteran player, missed some time in the last year and a half with injury, but it's a wide open bullpen, and he's the proven closer. He's got an ADP of 389. He's a guy I'm taking a dart on. If he doesn't get the job in the first few weeks, of the season, or it's just a, committee that just doesn't really have anyone getting a lot of saves, drop and move on. But he could take that job and run with it all year. Pittsburgh, another one wide open. The top guy's injured. Chris Stratton, 393 is his ADP. Get in there, take a shot. Obviously, the Pirates probably not going to win a lot of games, but even on bad teams, closers can get some significant save totals. Seattle, they're going to have a 4-man committee. Ken Giles is coming back after an injury for a year. He's a proven closer type, throws the ball hard. The early reports on him are pretty good in spring training. His ADP is 292 in the last week. Again, another guy. He could take the job over, and if not, you can cut him pretty early and not worry about it. How about San Diego? Another completely wide open bullpen. No one has any clue. But Dinelson Lamet has looked pretty good. He's another guy who's been really injured, throws really hard, early, good spring training reports. He's kind of a sneaky ad that people are taking late in drafts to have a lot of upside in that bullpen.
Let's talk about that third classification of upside. Now, that was injury players. Now, I tend to stay away from injury players. You talked about having places to store them. So who are your favorite injury upside players that you're leaning into right now?
I mean, there's a lot of pitchers that are, have injuries in spring training, and it's not clear when they're going to come back. So you're not going to take them early. But someone like Jack Flaherty, who's, he's got shoulder issues. We don't know when he's coming back. He's fallen like a rock in drafts. But at some point, you get to the last end of the bench and you have reserves, or if you have an IR slot where you can stash him and not pay a penalty, because then you can pick up another play on free agency, take a shot. He could come back. You got some other, you got Pete Fairbanks. He's out with a lat strain. He could be out for like 2 months. I mean, it looks pretty ugly, but he was a potential closer in that bullpen. Again, if he's someone that you can stash without much of a penalty, why not take a shot?
The best way to get ready for your fantasy baseball draft is the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Draft Kit. You can see it right now for free for 10 days. Just go to rotowire.com/try.